Why, good evening, y'all, and I hope everyone is having a terrific Tuesday. This is Cousin Vinny from Mason Dixon Podcast. And before we get started, I want to remind everyone the views and opinions expressed here on Mason Dixon Podcast and on MAD are our own and just our own views, and they do not represent the views and opinions of any other person, group, or organization. Remember, y'all, that for anyone watching on Facebook, stars help us put up statues. So for those watching on Facebook, please send us some stars. You can also make a donation at Monuments Across Dixie's website. We are also selling those amazing Lee statues. So I figured I would do a little episode. It's going to be a quick one, y'all. It's a little bit of an emergency episode because there's a lot of rumors going around regarding Fort Bragg. Or rather, what it's been named to instead. Just plug in my laptop, y'all. All right, so we learned about 2 years ago the Naming Commission, or as I called them, the Shaming Commission. They wanted to, do this purge on Southern history, and it was formed by Elizabeth Warren and did a lot of work with Ty Sigil to do this, and they wanted to strip out every single form of Confederate memorabilia, names, all that had to go. They seem to also forget that without the South, the military would not be that good because the North usually gave very little. And it wasn't until World War I that a lot of Southerners finally rejoined the military after years of animosity. Well, we learned that reconciliation was dead with the removal of the Reconciliation Memorial. And now what's happening is you had a lot of people, usually on the right, they were saying, oh, we'll rename all the bases, just vote for us. All right, we voted for people. We voted some people voted for Trump. They got him in office. And then he appointed Pete Hegseth. People had a lot of, happiness when he was getting nominated. Okay, he promised to rename the bases. And all these people that helped to, put Pete Hegseth in were told last night that, oh yeah, he's going to rename all these bases and it's going to be all good. Well, guess what, y'all? The Fort Bragg is not named after General Braxton Bragg from North Carolina. It's named after a Yankee from Maine who, to my knowledge, does not have any kind of ties to Braxton Bragg. So this is one of the problems that we're having now. And then you have some people on the right saying, oh, well, he just did what he could do because, he can't rename the bases after anyone Confederate. That was an act of Congress. Let's not also forget, y'all, that when the Naming Commission was being passed, Congress had every chance to shut it down. The problem was the Republicans. We had Republicans from even red states that voted with the left to continue funding the Naming Commission to allow this to happen. Instead, they decided to side with the left and do this. And it wasn't until after some of them were called out and the damage was done, they said, oh, well, we can't rename the bases. We already voted with them, but in the future, we promise not to rename anything. Well, the damage is done, y'all. So what else could be done? So this was the article, and I'll see if I can post it down here. It's from the U.S. Department of Defense. And it was a news release. And it looks like I can't post this on X, only on our Southern Media Company. But it's from the Department of Defense, and I'll see if I can share the link for y'all to see. Oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Robert Baggett. He says, Brother Vinny, I have a question. What will it take to repeal the law that prohibits the naming of military bases after the Confederates? Well, plain and simple, we need lobbyists. We need people as private citizens to contact their local representatives and to say that, we want the names back. We are tired of all this nonsense. That's part of the problem, because the Republicans allowed this to happen. That we had Republican control of Congress, and they still allowed the naming commission to continue. And I'm going to be honest, y'all, we really needed a better party, because the Republicans have done nothing when it comes to conserving anything. And they still have a lot of those Yankee-like origin roots. And a good mentor of mine, Mr. Kirk Lyons, he always calls the Republicans the stupid party. And I remember when I first heard that, I'm like, well, that's kind of harsh. And then when you think about it, it's actually true. Because how many Republicans, you know, they don't know history. They always promote Abraham Lincoln. Now, I really love the Confederate shop, and a good buddy of mine, Matt, who helps to run the Confederate shop. It's a small family-owned business, but they send stuff overseas. They send stuff all throughout the states. He has these wonderful handouts called Abraham Lincoln in his own words. And I think it's a great thing to hand out, because around this time, a lot of the GOP are having their Lincoln dinners, and they are not realizing what Lincoln stood for, what he was, who he was. And it's exactly true, Mr. Robert. They are damn rhinos. And, you know, I think it also takes a lot of people to stand up, because, you know, I get a lot of compliments from, you know, me and, you know, Mr. Corey, Cameron, Greg, and everyone else, Mr. Chad, that has joined us here at Mason-Dixon Podcast. Everyone, when they meet us in person, say, thank y'all for what y'all are doing. And we really appreciate what y'all have done to save the heritage. And we always tell everyone, you know, this is also a we effort. Everyone has got to get on social media and educate. You know, I'm only one person. Every one of us that works here, the small group of us for the podcast, we're just one person. We don't do much on our own. It takes a greater effort to get the word out and to spread the truth. By simply educating, you go a long way actually waking people up. What I did before, when we were trying to stop the first wave of the naming commission, we went together and we had a meeting at a home, one of our houses, usually my house, but it was either my house or someone else's home, and we'd get together and have snacks. We'd have, you know, we do 10-minute increments. That way it was, you know, more, you know, spaced out. And we would each call a representative, wait 10 minutes, and somebody else would call the same representative, or we would disperse out. So some people would be outside, some people would be in a different room, and they would call a different person on the, you know, Congress critters, the naming commission or the senators, call their office or hotline, and they would go on and say, you know, I'm in your district. Shame on you for funding the naming commission. You promised that you wouldn't do this, and you broke your word. So that's a huge problem. And I'm going to share my screen to the article. So this is the truth, because, you know, a big problem with media, and this is media on all sides. I'm not even giving, you know, quote, conservative media, which I use loosely, a free pass. And it says right here, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth renames Fort Liberty to Fort Bragg while flying aboard a C-17 from Joint Base Andrew to Stuttgart on February 10th, 2025, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth signed a memorandum renaming Fort Liberty in North Carolina to Fort Bragg. The new name pays tribute to Private Roland L. Bragg, a World War II hero who earned a Silver Star and Purple Heart for his exceptional courage during the Battle of the Bulge. This change underscores the installation's legacy of recognizing those who have demonstrated extraordinary service and sacrifice for the nation. Attributed by DoD Press Secretary John Yeloit. Here's the problem, y'all. Notice how they ignore the service of the Confederates. This is in North Carolina. This was named after more or less a Yankee from Maine. I didn't see that he has any Southern roots. I could be wrong, but didn't have any Southern roots or is anyhow related to General Braxton Bragg. The goal of naming it after Braxton Bragg was to honor a North Carolinian hero. Why are we forgetting our roots in statesmanship? The whole goal of everything was to always honor the state and the service from the state. This has been such a problem because, you know, the fact that the people of North Carolina, their ancestors don't matter is what they're saying. Their North Carolinian heroes don't matter. And to simply just say, oh, they were going within the law, that they couldn't do it because of Congress, that is a crock of bull manure. That's right. Lincoln was a tyrant. I believe a professor from Maryland, his last name was DiLorenzo, exposes Lincoln. Correct. Mr. DiLorenzo wrote several great books on Lincoln. One of them was the Problem with Lincoln. That was what it was called. And that book exposes Lincoln and a lot of the half-truths, because a half-truth is a lie. And let's face it, y'all, after the war between the states, the Yankees and the North went on a crusade to rewrite history. And if it wasn't for amazing Southern women, especially Mrs. Mildred Lewis Rutherford, we would not have our amazing history that we have now. And I'm going to find some books that were written by Mr. DiLorenzo. Marco Bassani is also another great author that writes several great books. And I like the book because it has Lincoln in his tall hat, kind of referencing the Tall Tales. And it's by Thomas DiLorenzo. And he wrote several good books. Lincoln Unmasked, that was written in 2006, is another great book. The Real Lincoln is another good book. And The Problem with Socialism as well. So he's written several great books. And, you know, that's another big thing too, is you have a lot of Republicans that they often just go on a tangent where they will just say, oh, we're against socialism, but we like Lincoln. They also forget that Lincoln was the ultimate socialist, you know, and a lot of his army had people that were Marxists, like the Ohio 49ers. Facts about the Confederacy says I have a signed copy of Lincoln Unmasked. Yeah, Robert, you could find the books online. You can also find them definitely on Amazon for sure. I know some of the different conventions that are out there usually have them for sale as well. Hegseth and Dixie. I don't quote me on this, but he might. I can search that for you. I want to say he might reside there, but I do know that he was born up north. He was born in Minnesota, so that could also be part of the problem. You do find a lot of people that are from up north, not all, but quite a few that either they just don't understand, they don't know any better because they were maybe taught the wrong thing. And I do try to give the benefit of the doubt more than I should. But yeah, that's been a huge problem. Oh my gosh. Well, you know, Robert, it's interesting because I can only imagine you have probably professors that might be a little bit more on the right. They don't like when Lincoln's criticized, so they probably went on a crusade and freaked out. And if I remember correctly, sorry, the 9th Ohio Infantry. There was another regiment that I thought of, but if anyone follows Miss Nahoya online, she's a professor and she is a skilled expert on Confederate history. But the 9th Ohio Infantry was the regiment that was known for being Marxist, and there were a few other ones as well that were in there. But that was the most, well-known one. I'm also getting over not feeling well, so I had a little bit of brain fog, and I think I accidentally said the 49ers. Thinking of the Super Bowl. And I think this is also another, Professor Nahoya is amazing, a true patriot. And, it shows because Professor Nahoya is not even from anywhere in the States, and she knows the history better than people residing in the States. And it really kind of resonates that the whole point that people need to know their history. And I can't stress this enough. The Confederate Shop sells an amazing textbook called The War Between the States, and it's probably one of the most balanced, easy to read, and fun textbooks that are out there. And the outrage that I've seen on this has been astronomical. There's been a lot of people that were so-called conservatives, and they're disgusted by the Republican Party. They want to know how this was able to happen, how that they can just do this slyly and not say anything. And you also have those that, hey, maybe it was a part of a bigger plan, that they're saying that if you rename everything after somebody more or less random, you can get the name back, but that's about it. Well, why would anybody Southern want to continue to serve in this military if they are not going to honor the heroes anymore? I know there's a lot of people that either quit the military over what happened, or families that are now telling their loved ones, don't even enlist, don't get involved anymore. And I know for certain, I have a family member who served in the military during the Cold War, and he told me, don't even enlist. They don't care about your heritage. Don't, obviously still help the veterans of the past, but let's not give them any more Southern blood. Why are we giving them Southern blood when they continue to just trample all over our history, or the whole, we should honor both sides, which is really just a cop-out to ignore the Southern side of history. And you look at a lot of these areas that are government controlled, and it's only one narrative, and they try to virtue signal all the time. I was just talking to someone that said, oh, I found a great, quote, Civil War movie you might like. Well, what is it? Oh, it's called Glory. And my response was, Glory more or less goes over segregation in the Yankee Army, but doesn't even talk about it, because that was about the USCT. And those were an army that was segregated, led by a white man. When has there ever been a Confederate movie that talks about any of the, blacks that fought in the Confederate Army? You'll never find one, because that goes against the narrative of what the North wants to preach. And more or less, this is a continuation of what we've seen. We've had, when they renamed the bases, it was all the virtue signal. And then the Republicans are doing that, but just in a different way, in a different form. And that's part of the huge problem that's going on. I agree, Robert. They are absolutely scalawags. And I heard that they're going to be doing this with all the other bases. So while the name is coming back, nothing is really going to change. It's just the name, not named after the person. So any mention of Braxton Bragg is still gone. Any mention of any of the other bases, expect the same thing, y'all. And the only thing that even happened was apparently Google Maps changed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which I don't even consider a win. What did that do? What did that accomplish? It didn't put back any monument or flag that was removed. So if you go and search it on Google, it doesn't come up as Gulf of Mexico, it comes up as Gulf of America. And then you also think about where this has led to when it comes to how we honor our dead. I've had people that would say, why do we leave flags to their graves anymore? Because it matters, y'all. We honor our Confederate heroes with our flags. Dixie is still very much relevant. And until we start adopting a better attitude, nothing is going to change, y'all. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same result. If we keep electing, quote, Republicans and voting straight Republicans, what is going to change, y'all? And there's been another issue that's happening in the GOP. The biggest issue that happened was with Scott Presler. So for those that don't know, Scott Presler is a voter activist. He goes around and he started his journey cleaning up the city. He'd go around and clean up Baltimore, clean up Chicago, things like that. And he would try to get people to register to vote. Well, the whole thing was to just get people to vote Republican. Now, I caught flack a few years ago when I said voting Republican won't change nothing. And then I got, how could you say that? The Republicans are doing the most. No, the Republicans really aren't doing the most, y'all. The Republicans don't really do much of anything except for having a fancy R in front of their name. Now, Scott Presler caught a lot of flack because he posted a photo. And he posted this photo on X, and I think there was a method to his madness. He posted a very suggestive photo where he was looking romantically at another guy, and they were kind of up against a wall. And Scott Presler is gay. Okay, right. No problem. People don't judge him based on that. And the whole purpose of that was to generate people saying stuff so it got the word out. Because really, like the saying goes, haters make you famous. And in this case, people that were outraged, both on the left and the right, shared it and it went viral. And then they were calling Scott Presler a hero. They were equating Scott Presler to our colonial ancestors. Now, that right there is what really angered me, because you know what? My colonial ancestors fought for values that were the same as my Confederate ancestors, and they had principles and morals and were Christians. By people doing photos and equating Scott Presler to that, I think it was really a slap in the face to those of us that are, Christian conservatives and have, deep roots, both patriots twice in the first American Revolution and the second American Revolution. No, what he did was something that we all do. We go out there, we try to advocate for a common cause. There's nothing wrong with that. But to call him an American hero for being one person, that was absolutely shameful. And I want to condemn any Christian that would go and put Scott Presler on a pedestal, because that right then and there is just so beyond over the top and petty, for lack of a better word. So the photo of him on X, let's see if I can pull it up for y'all. And his handle is the persistence. And he had this photo that was up there. And he's coming to New Jersey. Now, I'm going to be fully honest. New Jersey is not all that thrilled. So I don't expect him to have much success in the state of Jersey. New Jersey also has a lot of rhino Republicans. And they also have a lot of rhino liberals. So meaning that they're liberals, but they say, oh, we're more moderate. We tend to side with the Republicans. And they're really not. Or the, quote, conservatives. This is what you get on Scott Presler's thing. And if I can find that photo, that would be real good. Has anyone watching, have any of y'all heard of Scott Presler? Now, I have met him before, and he's a very nice person, and I have nothing against Scott Presler. What I have a problem on is the fact of the whole mantra of voting straight Republican. Because if you vote straight Republican, that also means voting for, let's say, New Jersey, right? They had Jack Ciattarelli. Jack Ciattarelli is friends with Nikki Haley, is anti-Confederate, condemned the display of the Confederate flag, and also is all for the gender ideology. Why would you vote Republican if the person has those beliefs? So simply registering Republican is really not going to change much. And then people were saying that Scott Presler was the reason why Trump won the second time and XYZ. I also thought that was a little over the top for the sole purpose that there was a lot of other people that did a lot of the same thing, getting people to register to vote and all that. Here's a picture of some of the New Jersey people. And if you look at this photo, a lot of people in this photo helped with the Jack campaign in New Jersey, which I called by far one of the worst campaigns. And some of the people on the campaign were a little sleazy, for lack of a better word. A lot of them had baggage. A lot of them were also attacking the New Jersey flaggers for the work that they did and how, New Jersey flaggers, I myself would not apologize for flying the Confederate battle flag during the Protest Murphy campaign. So the simple, you vote straight Republican. So guess what? We don't do anything other than getting together for breakfast parties and cocktails and drinking. That's what the GOP has turned into in New Jersey. They have the Lincoln Dinner where they read selective speeches and they don't do anything that raises awareness to what the truth is. So I'm going to give a reading right here. And this is from Abraham Lincoln in his own words. And you know what? I'm going to hold this up, so feel free to screenshot this. All right, so what Lincoln said, and this is from Abraham Lincoln directly, quote, "I have no purpose directly or indirectly to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so and have no inclination to do so." First inaugural address of Abraham Lincoln, Monday, March 4th, 1861. Let's see, Abraham Lincoln also said, "My paramount objective in the struggle is to save the Union, and it is not either to save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some slaves and leaving others alone, I would do that also." Abraham Lincoln to Horace Greeley, Friday, August 22nd, 1862. I have not heard of that, Mr. Robert. What is that movie about? So right then and there is another example of why Abraham Lincoln is just a lying tyrant, like a lot of the GOP is today, and it is a uniparty. And then what we're also seeing is the Republicans are also happy that Fort Bragg is not named after the Confederate, because you have these Republicans that are extremely anti-Confederate. They often say, "Oh, Confederates are Democrats, and we can't honor any Democrats." Well, no, it's not really that simple, y'all. There were Confederates that were Republicans, also known as Whigs back in the day. There was also Confederates that were Republicans as well. So why the heck are they just ignoring that side of it? Beauregard was a Republican. People forget about that. So I'm going to pull up the photo that was posted, and I want y'all to tell me what you think about this, because, you know, how many of us, and I've known a lot of people that they were former, Republicans. And at the time, if they were in the Young Republicans or the regular Republicans group, if they were at any event waving any kind of Confederate flag, they were either shamed, kicked out, harassed, or they lost their, office position. I'll also share another cool photo that the New Jersey Flaggers shared. This is who Scott Pressler is going to be trying to fight for in New Jersey, and it's Jack Chitterelli. He went to go visit Lincoln, claiming that Lincoln was this great patriot. When will you ever have another Republican that honors General Lee or Stonewall Jackson? It's hard to even find that these days. There's also another issue about Scott Pressler, because he was fired from a company in Virginia. So Robert says the movie Ride with the Devil with Tobey Maguire was a pre-war battle between pro-Confederates, bushwhackers versus Union Jayhawkers, and really well made and fair. Well, thank you. I'm going to have to look that up. All right, so in this photo, it goes on. While the RNC circles, for one, Pressler published committee members' email addresses and Twitter accounts in a bid to harness grassroots sentiment against electing incumbent chair Ronna McDaniel to a fourth term. But some had another reason to recoil at Pressler's involvement. He previously worked with and reported to the RNC as a Republican Party of Virginia operative until the party suddenly cut ties in August 2016. According to three people familiar with the circumstances, Pressler engaged in sexual activity inside Virginia Beach office the RNC chair shared with the state party and posted explicit pictures of the encounter on Craigslist. Yes, you read that right, Craigslist. After party officials were made aware of the photos, Pressler was confronted about what had happened, and seeing the writing on the wall, resigned. That's from the federal campaign finance records, confirms the state party stopped paying Pressler just 2 months before the 2016 election. Reached by phone on Wednesday, Pressler hung up the playbook and did not respond to subsequent messages detailing the allegation, nor has he responded to any response to this or reposted this. So apparently Scott Pressler does have some pretty dirty baggage that he's not responding to. Why is he not responding to this? And why do people continue to just support this blindly? We need to have a good look in the mirror with a lot of this. And this person named Antunes got a lot of flack for calling this out for being unprofessional. So I want to ask y'all, how come the GOP condemns us for being at Republican events with our flags or doing ceremonies that are reverent and they're wonderful, but they promote this? This was the photo that was posted. Is this what the GOP, if they claim to be the new GOP, is this what they want to represent them as being, quote, what they want to promote? How come this gets applauded by the GOP and everyone else, but photos honoring General Lee and Stonewall Jackson get condemned? Make it make sense, y'all. So with that being said, I think the GOP has a lot of drama to sort out. Until they can conquer themselves, they're going to be in the same mess that they're in. And my prediction is we're not going to see much real change for the South. We're not going to see much of the important preservation of history for Dixie. And my own opinion, we need this magazine to be published again. Southern Partisan Magazine. All the stuff that's mentioned in there is true for today. And I also want to honor a Confederate soldier as I wrap up this quick episode of Mason-Dixon Podcast. Also wanted to mention the views and opinions are just our own. I'm not sure if I forgot to mention that in the beginning. I'm going on about 3 hours of sleep, y'all. But I want to take the time to honor James Reagan, Home Guard, District 23, Maury County, Tennessee, born April 7th, 1838 in Spring Hill, Tennessee, died March 3rd, 1911. All right, y'all. And that is going to be it for this episode. Oh, heck yeah, I love that. Facts of the Confederacy says, my wife and I like to go to liberal areas and place the Confederate flag stickers over liberal messages. Keep doing what y'all are doing. And y'all, please subscribe to Facts of the Confederacy. I've done the same thing when I was down in South Carolina, in Charleston. We put battle flag stickers over the Pride stuff. We put it over John Brown's stickers that were all over, and we put them over Biden stickers. I also made sure to always have a Confederate flag on me, so my necklace, and also wearing it, because forwarding the colors is the best thing that we've got to do, y'all. There is never an inappropriate place not to forward the colors. This right here is our flag. This battle flag is our flag. The national flags, they are our flag. We've got to stop trying to hide behind one while condemning the others. All Confederate flags matter. Mr. Robert says, thank you, Vinny, for all that you do. Deo Vindice. Mr. Robert, thank you for all that you do too. And thank you for always being on here, spreading the word. It's really a we effort, y'all. I'm just one person. I do something that we all could do. Get on there, make a podcast, do a post, make a page that's dedicated to studying Southern history in y'all's area, and fight against this nonsense that we're dealing with. I want to say God bless each and every one of you. Long live the South, and God bless Dixie. Deo Vindice, y'all.